Did I go into the right group this time? There we are. We are live. So thank you very much for joining us today for the InnerStrength Empowerment Hour, episode 17. And we are excited to talk to you today about relationships. So as you know, Valentine's Day is coming up this weekend, and it just reminded me that it's not all hearts and roses, right? There's relationships in our life that are tough, sometimes with our partner, sometimes with our kids, with our friends, with our coworkers. Sometimes we don't have a partner, we don't know why, and we're lonely. So there's all sorts of things having to do with relationships that it's just so important that we get it right. And so you might think it's strange for a weight loss group to be talking about this. And I was thinking about that today as I was in the shower. I was like, they're probably wondering, what the heck did I sign up for? Mm-hmm. And the thing is, I think that anyone who has been through this journey, and it's what my program is about the way that you are changing is really improving your whole life. And it's one of the main things that has improved for me and the women that I work with is relationships. That's been huge. So I want to make sure that we talk about this because it really is important. And it's something that, if you're not changing overall, your journey is not complete. You're not going to really be able to stick to something if you're not changing as a person. And so this really is about getting healthy inside and out, and that includes your relationships. So I hope that you will pipe in today with some of your experiences and your thoughts, because obviously, as usual, we love to hear from you. So welcome, LT and Joanne.
Hello. Hello.
So how, just overall, just to get us started, how do you feel your relationships, the quality of your relationships has changed overall in general since you started this program and this process of working on yourself in this way?
Go ahead, LT.
Yeah, I'm going to say that I think that all of them have improved. And the bottom line is it's because I've improved. I've made changes to myself. I have accepted myself. I'm caring for myself. I'm making healthy choices for myself. My thinking is not as fuzzy as it used to be. I'm more clear. I'm more intentional. I'm not reactionary. Things just don't happen to me. I make things happen. And it's just really improved, not only with my husband, but with my children, with friends, even with my own self. And that really is the most important relationship you're going to have, is the one that you have with your own self.
Right. Absolutely. Thoughts, Joanne?
Yeah, I feel the same way, exactly the same way. Everything has improved. And I feel like the main thing is it being intentional about things and being intentional about your relationships and how you show up in your relationships has made an overall difference in the quality of all of them, whether they're family or my husband or my kids. It's your intentions and how you show up in them has changed drastically. So I feel like it's been an overall change.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. I think that before, I felt like I was playing catch up all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was so distracted by how crappy I felt.
Yeah.
How upset I was with how I looked.
Mm-hmm.
Just not feeling well. That I was irritable and I wasn't present. I wasn't in the moment. And so it's really hard to be intentional if you're not in the moment. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's true. That's a huge change right there. Even if there was nothing else, just being present and in the moment is huge. Linda says, I agree, especially with relationship I have with myself. I love me. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's the most important thing that you can have. Is love for yourself. When you have that, it's the basis for everything, like you were saying, LT. So before, I think this was a really interesting question that I was thinking to myself is, in your former life, how would you have defined whether or not a relationship was going well? Is that something that you
Yeah, I
thought?
would probably say that if it's not angst ridden or strife or not fighting or arguing or being upset or taking things the wrong way or out of context, and if it were just smooth sailing, I would have said it was going to be okay, but it was not going to be smooth sailing because I was having turmoil with my own self, and like you said, my thoughts were muddled and I was fixated on certain things that I couldn't get right. And so that took up a large chunk of my brain and my energy and
Mhm.
my time and my thoughts. And once that is gone and that's clear and you are in alignment, as we say a lot, and you're content and you feel and down to your toes that you're making the right choices and you have doctor's visits to back them up that yes, these are the right choices. You just really are starting to operate on all cylinders. And so then you're open to people. And yes, there's still going to be things that go wrong. There's still going to be instances that pop up, and I handle them better because I'm better. And
Right.
I look at things more with a better perspective. It's not so internal and how this affects me, and why me, and why did this happen to me? And oh, great, now this, that kind of was how I was before. It's a fresh way of looking at things, and it's really the appropriate way to handle a situation because you're handling it as it is. You're not adding all this other stuff to it.
Right. If you come
Mhm.
into every situation in victim mode,
Yes,
you're already
you're already.
you're seeing things through a filter that is
Yes.
going to predetermine a lot of your outcomes. And I just want to briefly, I know you had a doctor's appointment that you were super excited about. Would you like to share with everybody what the doctor said?
Sure. I went yesterday and had my annual checkup with my OBGYN and had a wonderful checkup. And, I made a lot of changes in this last year. So my chart looked a lot different this year when they were doing the numbers portion
Mhm.
of it. And so she praised me for that and really wanted to know what I was doing. And I told her, about the whole food plant based. And she thought that was a great thing and really praised me. And before she walked out the door, she turned around and looked at me and she said, I just really want to commend you on having your act together while the world is seemingly falling apart. And I thought that's a high praise from a doctor.
It
And I
is.
Mhm.
and I
Yeah.
said, well, thank you very much, Dr. Holiday. I appreciate that because
Yeah.
that's the kind of appointments that we look for and want to
Right.
have. Because there have been many, many appointments where I pulled up in the parking lot with dread. Oh gosh.
Mhm.
Right.
What's the scale going to say? What's the blood
Yep.
pressure going to be when they take the blood? What's the cholesterol going to be?
Right. That's like the worst when you know going
Right.
in that
Going
you're
in.
going to get a talking to.
You are.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. And Kathleen says that's so awesome, LT.
Thank
Um,
you.
but all right. So, Joanne, would you agree with that in terms of how you defined whether or not a relationship was good, or is it something you even thought about?
Yeah, well, and I didn't think about it at the time, but now, I feel like what I base my relationships a lot on, and I have a few core people who have stayed my friends throughout my life, and those people, I feel like it's an authentic thing. But I feel like before, when I would, as an adult especially, it's really hard to make friends when you're not, you kind of just hang out and you're like mom friends with other people in the
Mm-hmm.
play group or whatever. And I think the way I would define it was if other people liked me. Did other people like me? Then okay, that's a good friendship. When I wasn't really thinking, was this even a good friendship for me to be in, or was it a good relationship? Or I think that's how I got myself into volunteering so much, because I thought those relationships, because I was a stay-at-home mom and I didn't have like a career, the volunteering thing was like my job. And so I felt like, those were my coworkers or whatever. Did they like me? And
Yeah.
if they liked me, then that defined, okay, you get a gold star. But did
Right.
I like them? And I didn't even care if I didn't care if
Yeah.
I liked them or not. It's just, did they approve of me?
Right.
And that's how I judged whether it was a good relationship or not. And now, wow, you know, that's exhausting. If you're just going around trying to make everybody like you and you don't like yourself, that's not quality.
Mm-mm.
You know, I think that we get into that in grade school and high school, and then sometimes you just never really get out of it. You're in this sort of autopilot of
Yeah.
wondering if you are good enough for people.
Right.
Even if you're not doing that out loud, I think a lot of us really exude some confidence, you know, but behind the scenes, we're like, do they like me? When you don't really like yourself, or at least, you know, you have some ambivalence about that. I think I knew that I wasn't in good relationships. And I felt like people, I did feel like people didn't really like me, but I also felt like they just weren't supportive of me. And they weren't. I mean, so, but it's hard when you're surrounding yourself with those type of people not to blame yourself, you know, because they're always down on me. So I'm always down on me. So it's like, to me, it was more confusing. It was like a puzzle that I couldn't figure out. That, you know, why are these people so down on me all the time? Why can't I do anything right? So it was this sort of like, well, wait, but I am doing these things. So why aren't they happy with that? And how, you know, it just was, it's this cyclical thing. And I was like, I'm just not, maybe this is just something I'm not good at. You know, that's kind of where I landed with it. And I did attract, you know, because I wasn't supportive of myself, I attracted people who weren't supportive of me. How, you know, now that that's probably the biggest thing for me that has changed is I attract different kind of people into my life. I generally now attract people who have good self-esteem, you know, with themselves in terms of like my relationships and stuff, but people who are really supportive of me and think I'm great too. So I have a give and take with people now. How would you say you're attracting, well, you know, have you noticed that you're attracting a different quality of person, and how are your communications different with them?
Yeah, I would say that I am very blessed in that I have a good core group of friends that have been with me since childhood. And I have lots of acquaintances. And sometimes friends come into your life for a season. And I really do believe that. And just because somebody may have been a good friend of yours does not mean that they may not become an acquaintance one day. And that really is okay. And I think that I used to really get upset about that when a good friend became an acquaintance, because I wanted it to be right, or I didn't want ill will. And, you know, I'm just letting that go now. Sometimes people are acquaintances, and that does not mean you're going to wish them harm or hope something happens, or that they, you know, end up having just a horrible life. You know, you can wish people well and move on, and really move on and do what you said, attract your tribe who really do want to be with you and want the best for you. I think that with weight, though, it was so personal for me. It was so internal for me. And while I had wonderful core friends, I'm talking about the core group that have been since childhood, I could have reached out to them. I truly could have on lots of instances, but I internalized my turmoil concerning weight. If I needed them in other areas, I knew I could call, but I really kept it to myself. And because a lot of it was just overridden with shame.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of it was. And so I didn't want to share. I didn't want to talk about the bad. And that's why I wrote it. That's why I have all these journals. I wrote all of it. But, you know, I could have reached out. And I would encourage people, if you really feel safe with somebody and you feel like they are going to support you, try to let some of it go by talking with somebody, and just save yourself of just beating yourself up privately over and over again, because it really just beats your spirit down, is what it does.
So do you feel, have you been able to be more authentic with these people now?
Yes, they have seen an obvious change. And when you lose as much weight as I have, you tend to say, "Huh, what's going on?" And so they have noticed, and I am able to share with them. And of course, they're thrilled for me and happy for me and that type thing. And I have a wonderful family that supports me. My immediate family, they all do. I know that growing up, I have shared that my dad, while he loved me as much as he was probably capable of, it was really about appearances, and it was what I was doing in order to make him look good. And that was being, officers and clubs, or being the really good grades, or strong connections with people that had like social standing, that type thing. He was really more concerned about that. I remember when I first started dating my husband, he was not excited at all about it. And it had nothing to do with my husband. It had nothing to do with his character, his personality, the type of person he was. He did not grow up in a country club. He grew up on the other side of town where we were. He did not have means. He was a family that was just very, very challenged in that area, but he is self-made. And of course, as time went on, Dad would have never remembered that he said that. And my husband just has enough character and integrity about him that we never mentioned it again. And Tim never held that against him. He never did. And then when, at the time when my dad died, he couldn't have been more proud of Tim if he tried.
Yeah.
He thought he put the moon up there with his own two hands.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, definitely, relationships change over time.
They do.
And are, like you said, you were sort of raised on appearances.
It was, yeah. Social standing.
You were
social standing. I was very privileged. I'll just be real up front with you. I was very privileged, and I knew it, and I'm grateful for it. And Tim had every disadvantage. So I can see where he would have been a little leery. He probably thought he was going to have to help support me the rest of my life.
Right.
But I saw a difference in Tim. I was looking at the character, the person, the work ethic, the integrity. And, not everybody starts out at a high level. You build to that,
Right.
But Dad wanted it right away. He wanted it his second.
Well, right. So I think that, but that's a good example of you being raised in a situation where, even with your friends, there was some level where it was about appearances. There were certain things you weren't going to reveal. Right. And so I think a lot of that, does go back to our childhood, our conditioning on that stuff. And one way or the other, even if we do feel differently, it comes out. And especially with women, I think that there's, we don't want to appear too vulnerable because women will attack one another. We don't want to have, that we don't want to show what our Achilles heel is.
Right.
Because we're always aware that we need to protect ourselves. And so it is really hard to be vulnerable with people, even if you do feel like they're, good friends who are going to be supportive. There's still some part of you that you want to hold back. Mm-hmm. So Kathleen says, I think this pandemic has really shown me who is a good friend and who's not. I've had to let some people go, but other relationships have become stronger and deeper. And I think some of that is the safety of being forced to communicate virtually. Yeah. That's true. It's definitely changed things for many of us. And I've heard that's not the first person that I've heard say that. You can be spending, especially, if you're spending a lot of time with somebody because of the pandemic, that can cause a lot of strain too. I've heard the divorce rate.
Divorce rate. Yeah.
I mean, you find out if you're not compatible with somebody, if you've been spending most of your time apart with them because you're both working outside the home. So, so yeah.
And I tell you just another aspect of a relationship that's changed, and it's this social media. Because the way people write things and you misinterpret or think things are different, or they throw in you a little shade, or maybe they're saying stuff without saying it. So, I mean, it really can kind of, and if you're already in a mode of victim mode and a little bit down, you can just take that and run with it and say, why is she talking like that? Why is she saying that? And I think that it can cause some harm. So I would just beware of who all you're friends with and what you're saying.
Yeah, that's boundaries,
boundaries.
It really, which we're going to talk about here in a second. So what about with you, Joanne? Do you feel like you're communicating with people differently now? And have you noticed if you're attracting different people into your life?
For sure. And I have sort of an opposite upbringing than LT did, but in the same sort of twisted way, it was all about appearances as well. Because behind the scenes, my life was a complete war zone. But it always had to be on me, like when I would go to school or whatever, everything's fine. Like I'm the straight A student, I'm the this, I'm the captain of the cheer squad, I'm the, like everything had to be perfect because I never wanted anybody to know what was going on behind the scenes. And my mom sort of did that too with when we would go out in public, we had to be dressed like, your mom's coming up to you with the thumb, wiping your face right before you walk in. Like everything had to be so perfect all the time because God forbid anybody knew the reality of what was going on. So I feel like in my adult life, and I don't want to be in that victim mode where because I've done the mindset work and now I don't place blame on my childhood at all. I do identify though that that's what I learned. That's the environment we grow up in. That's what we learned. And it's not your fault. It's not their fault. They were in a situation and you just happen to learn from that. So that's what I was learning all those years. So as an adult, I feel like that's the script that's going on in the background of how you form friendships and relationships and how can you meet the other person's needs more than your own and make it look good from the outside. So now, when I've learned how to just overcome all of that crap and go, you know what, I'm screwed up. Like I messed up. I'm in a situation I don't like where I don't like myself. How do I fix it? And I'm more in a learning mode of learning how to be authentic. And in doing so, I can recognize that now in other people. And so I can be more discerning of who I let in. If they're just, fake from the inside out, I can see that now. And I don't try to mirror that. I don't try to fit in with that anymore. And so I feel like the people, of course, during a pandemic, it's hard to meet people or form friendships, but online even, I can feel that from people. I can feel if they're hiding something and I can feel if they're being real with me. And I feel like that's the difference of who I let in or who I don't.
I feel the exact same way. I really have a little sense. It's like we have a little alert. We can see right through it. I know. I can too. It's very authentic.
Yeah, I think so. We talk a lot about, what you're attracting into your life, because when you are putting a certain, your self is like a beacon. And so your like attracts like most of the time. So you're going to attract people who are vibrating on that same level. If you are feeling positive and, happy with yourself and secure and confident, I know I used to attract a lot of really broken men all the time. And I was putting out a beacon of, number one, I'm broken. And number two, I'm willing to put up with your crap so I can help fix you.
Right.
So, now I don't put that vibe out there. And so I'm not, I'm not attracting those types of people like I would have years ago. And it's, that feels good. And I do want to say a little bit about, what constitutes a good relationship and a good marriage, a good friendship. Because, when you're setting the right boundaries, that's really what sets the tone. And we can easily fall into, especially as women, not only women, but especially as women, we can fall into codependency. And so that I read for those of you who've heard of this book, a book called Codependent No More. Oh my gosh, I must have read that 30 years ago or something, 25 years ago at least. And it was so eye-opening for me because I realized that I was constantly trying to fix people. And that I was attracting people who needed fixed and who were taking advantage of me wanting to fix them. And it puts you both in a cycle where I'm always trying to fix them and they're never getting fixed. So it just never, they don't ever take responsibility for themselves. And I never get anywhere with it. And but it's people who put their self-value and like their ability to fix others. Like you convince yourself, I'm the only person who can help this person. And that makes you feel better about yourself. And so that's something that you have to watch out for in relationships. I mean, you can have that tendency without technically being codependent. You can have it to different degrees. And we have to let people take responsibility for themselves. And in fact, we have to demand that they do. And the first step in that is us taking responsibility for ourselves, not being in victim mode, and really being responsible for our own happiness.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think, constitutes a good either marriage or, with a partner, a long-term partner? What do you guys think constitutes that? I think it's kind of a hard question in a way.
We teach people how to treat us, what we allow. And if you are going to be walked all over and you are a doormat, they will walk all over you. But if you can have that respect, and it can be a dignified conversation, and it can be not in the heat of the moment, but, have a little time and wait till things cool off. And if you can get together on that, I think that's really what constitutes it, where you're, as a good one, is that you're both moving one step forward. And I will say that my husband just told me just recently that we were just having an honest conversation about, he tells me a lot how proud he is of me and of what I've accomplished with this. And he just said, it is just such a relief to me that when I come home, I don't have to worry about what kind of mood you're in. And I thought, he really did stick with me like a rusty fish hook. He really did, because I really was rather moody. And it didn't take much to set me off or to do. And I grew up walking on eggshells in my house. And Lord knows, I do not want people to walk on eggshells in my home, because I was just so against it. Against it. And to hear him say that he had to do that when I really didn't understand the depth of what that was. So I lament that, and we've moved on. And of course, I've apologized a million times for that, but he's so happy for the way that it is now. And there's just there's an honesty there. There's a playfulness there. There's just a love and respect, and what we've built. And we've been married almost 29 years, and we just feel like we honestly, because I am in such a good place where I am with my mind and my physicality and my alignment, we truly feel like we're just getting started. We really do. It's kind of like the beginning days again.
Yeah. It's a revival for sure.
It is. And it's a whirlwind for him. And he even asked me, it's so funny to me. He even said, "Will the real LT please stand up?" But he says it in a funny way. He doesn't like, "Well, he says it in a funny way." And I said, "I'm standing right here." And he goes, "And I'm loving it." I mean, it's just, I'm a whirlwind to him. He does not even know how to take me. He's just shaking his head going, "I can't even." And I'm like, "I know, isn't it wonderful?"
Yeah.
It's fun. It's what I've always wanted. It's what I've always wanted. And when you finally get it, it's the best.
But the cool thing is, like what you're saying, is that this wasn't, I remember the first conversation that we had, and I hope you don't mind me saying this, but you were like, my husband's never home. I feel like we don't spend any time together. Yeah. And now,
right.
Right, because of his hobbies and work and all of that stuff. But the point is that you didn't feel like you guys were connecting, and you didn't have, but in this process, you didn't have to fix him.
No. And the reason why I felt like I was alone a lot, but see, when I was talking to you, I was still in that mindset, and I was still in victim mode and gone and alone. So it gave me more time to ruminate. When I'm happy with myself and when I'm engaged and when I'm doing, I can say, have fun. And when we connect, we have a stronger, more deeper connection than when we do. So I don't lament him being gone, because I have filled my cup up.
Right.
I'm not depending on him to make me happy.
Exactly. Right.
That's what's happened in a year. Right.
What about you, Joanne? Any thoughts on this, on what constitutes a good marriage or partnership with another person?
Yeah, and I agree with LT. The last thing she said, that's what I was going to say, is not relying on the other person to make you happy, and understanding the difference, because my husband works a ton of hours too, and I used to get so angry, so angry, and I because I was relying on him to make me happy. You know, it's not a Disney movie. Life is not a Disney movie. We are not Disney princesses. So I feel like when you put your eggs in someone else's basket, it's a really dangerous game to play. And you do that very easily when you don't have your own self-worth or your own self-esteem, or true self-esteem. And there's a big difference between being alone and being lonely.
That's
And
right.
I think, you know, if we don't recognize that and we don't fix that within ourselves, that's when we start trying to fix the other people around us, because obviously we're not happy because of them. So if I can fix you, then I'm going to be happy. That's so far from the truth. You know, like, we have to fix ourselves and be happy whether they're in the room or they're not. Like, now I'm just like LT. I'm like, see you later. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go do that. Whereas before I would be like, oh, well, it must be nice.
Again? Must be nice.
Must be nice. Yeah, you know, like, because I spend so much time, and like you've pointed this out now, anticipating other people's needs. And now I worry about what my needs are. And I don't rely on other people to meet my needs. And I don't worry about what their needs are. Their needs are their own journey. And I've only realized that because I spent so much time putting my needs on other people to fix. And now that I've fixed my own self and fixed my own needs, I understand that I can't fix other people. That's on them. They need to go through that journey, whatever that looks like. You know, they need to do that.
Even with our kids. So I remember saying to Tucker, and Tucker will be 17 next month, which is like mind blowing for me. And I have two older, for those of you who don't know, I have two older girls who are out on their own. They're 27 and 29. But I remember saying to Tucker when he was about 10 or 11, he was always he always just wanted someone to entertain him all the time. I mean, we called it the Tucker show, because he was always just on and always trying to, you know, engage, like, just 24/7. It was exhausting. So one day he said to me, you know, Mom, I came into the bedroom and he was like, I'm just not happy. And I said, okay, well, what's wrong? And I kind of went through some different things. And what we realized was he was just feeling bored. And I just said, listen, honey, it's not my job to make you happy. It's my job to take care of you and to give you as many opportunities to be happy as I can. But whether or not you're happy is your job, your whole life. No one else is ever going to be responsible for it but you. And I could see him sort of like, huh, you know, but I think we have to let our kids know that too, because otherwise they will grow up like us, looking for somebody or something, like somebody who's going to fill them up and make them happy. And that's not a thing. If you're not happy with yourself, there is no one out there who's going to make it better for you. You have to do the work and feel good about yourself. And so, you know, some of you guys may feel that that's harsh for an 11-year-old or whatever, but he needed to hear that, because I did spend a lot of time with him, and, you know, his thing was, and gave him a ton of attention. And his thing was, well, I'm not happy, so it must be because you're not giving me more. And I wanted him to understand that that's not what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's my biggest pet peeve with this generation. And I'll throw my daughter in with it, who's 18, the entitlement. You know, I cannot stand it. You're not entitled to everything, you know, and the sooner they can learn that, in my opinion, the better off they're going to be in this world. you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have raised my kids to be really independent,
Mm-hmm.
and critical thinkers in terms of, questioning things and, really looking at bigger picture, those types of things. Um, but yeah, um, it's definitely a different vibe than what I was what I grew up with in terms
Oh
of,
yeah.
work ethic and things like that. Like, I feel like I'm constantly pounding that into to Tucker.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I don't know, he hasn't ever seen anybody in our family being lazy or, anything like that. So it's like, I just feel like, I don't know, it's just a generational thing.
It
Uh,
is. I noticed that it's across the board. It's really
yeah.
prevalent in this little group that I'm with down here. I can tell you that. It gets
And
on my
like,
nerves.
but like we're saying though, I also recognize there was a time when I would have been so hyper focused on that.
Mm-hmm.
And now what I recognize is everyone is on their own journey. And so I appreciate the fact he does have a part-time job and he's going to
Mm-hmm.
school. And, so there's, even though as a parent, I would like him to be in a different place. Like, this is just his journey. This is where he's at. And as I've said many times, there's so many amazing, wonderful things about him. And so I think because I'm not talk about putting your eggs in a basket, we do that with our kids too.
Yeah.
We're like,
Mhm.
we want our kids to be perfect because that reflects well on us. I've had that conversation with Tucker too, when we talked about how parents judge one another based on what clubs and sports and all of the stuff their kids are in,
Yeah.
and how their grades are and all of the stuff. It's like, you know, um, it's depressing. It's hard for us. It makes it hard for us as parents, and it makes it really hard for them, because rather than being on their own journey, they're feeling pressure from parents to do certain things so that to make us look good, so like,
And that's
which is,
hard. That's
yeah,
hard to let go of, because both of my kids right now, it's killing me. It's absolutely killing me. They don't want to do band. And I'm like, my whole dream, my whole life was to be in band, and I
yeah,
never got to do it. Like, I never got to do it. And so the fact that they're A, good at it, B, it's a thing, and it's like they're doing it, and I get to be involved in it too because I'm a band mom. Like, the
yeah.
fact that they don't want to do it next year, I want to strangle the life out of them. But I'm also hanging back going, okay, just take a breath. This is their journey. This is not your life. This is their life. If they want to try other things, and it's not because they just want to give up and not do anything. It's they want to try other things, and they're recognizing that, well, because band is a big commitment. If I spend all my time doing that, I can't try other things, or I can, but I'm going to make my life insane. So I'm just like taking that breath back going, okay. Whereas 2 years ago, I would have been like, no, you're doing band. You're not going to give up on this. But now I'm letting it go, and I'm dealing with
Well,
it.
you
Mhm.
have your own life, and so
Yeah,
you're not. I think as parents, it's sometimes we get caught up in living vicariously
right.
Yeah.
through our
Absolutely.
kids. And like, especially if your kid is in sports, like, that's a huge,
Mhm.
very similar to the band thing, where it's sort of, it takes up all your time and you
Yeah.
love going. Like, you know I'll hear women say, like, well, I can't do this because my kids are in 3 sports or whatever. And I'm like, why are your kids in 3 sports? Well, then
Yeah.
after I'm talking to them more, it's
Mhm.
because that's what the parent wants. They
Mhm.
love traveling to these different things, and they love, being there and cheering them on, and they love, wearing the pin with their face on it. And
Right.
it's
Mhm.
a thing for them. And, sometimes to the point where, they don't care if their kid wants to do it or not. They just
Right.
want the kid to keep doing it. And so that's the other thing, is I think when we're happy with ourselves, we put less pressure on other
Mhm.
people to do things to make us happy, whether it's friends or, family, or, or even our own kids.
Mhm.
But we talked about, that sometimes you need to let people go.
Mhm.
And that can be really hard. I think, we can see it as a failing sometimes, or not know how to make it happen. And so something that we talked about a lot in the group and the work that I do with women is about forgiveness. And my feeling on forgiveness is much different, I think, than a lot of what you hear out there. I don't preach the warm, fuzzy forgiveness. If you feel warm and fuzzy towards somebody and you want to forgive them in that way, that's great. But I don't think it's necessary at all. And I think I don't appreciate it when people tell me how to forgive. That's not for them to decide, that's for me to decide. So people will say, well, you need to forgive them. And that means you need to treat them this way and go to this event with them and participate in family things in this capacity. And it's like, no, you don't get to decide what my forgiveness looks like.
Mhm.
So forgiveness is just like, if you look at the definition, it is a cancellation of debt. That's what it is. So you can, if somebody has really wronged you, you can say, okay, I understand that this happened. I accept that it happened. I no longer am looking for you to make it right, do anything further if they have done anything to make it right, looking for an apology, looking for, whatever. You can just say, I am going to move on from that. But that doesn't mean that you need to still interact with that person. That's your choice.
Right.
You can forgive someone and choose not to interact with them anymore, or change your interactions with them, and that is your choice.
Mhm.
So we need to, I think, number one, as a society, we have to stop demanding that other people adhere to whatever our definition is of forgiveness. You can decide what it looks like. And sometimes that means not having a relationship with that person,
Mhm.
which is also completely okay. But I think the thing where people get stuck is, how do you manage that? How do you either tell someone, I'm not going to have a relationship with you anymore? Do you just like hide when they come to the door and not answer the phone? Like what do you do? And I think this is, especially with women, it brings up a lot of, we don't want people to think we're a bitch. We don't want to, it's hard for us to say what we want and what we mean sometimes. And it's either coming out, and I think LT, you might have alluded to this earlier, like it's coming out like, screaming,
Right.
or you're not saying it at all. And there is an appropriate way to express your dissatisfaction and your anger with somebody. And when and obviously we don't have to say everything that comes into our minds. If you're irritated with somebody, there's certain things that you just don't say, or you think, okay, this isn't worth an argument, or whatever the thing is. But if somebody is really doing something that crosses your boundaries, it is absolutely appropriate to say so. And so I think that some of the big work that I try to do with women is just speaking up for themselves in those situations. And how do you say it in a way that you can feel at least at peace with the way you're handling it, because you can't control other people. So I'm wondering what your guys' thoughts are on you know, on forgiveness, and if there are areas in your life where, because of the way that you've changed your thinking on this, you are treating situations differently, what that looks like for you.
Yeah, I'm definitely treating it different than I used to. I think when I got frustrated with somebody before, and they're moving from the friend category to the acquaintance category, because can't live this life this long and not have that happen to you eventually. I'm
Oh yeah,
50 years old. That's going to happen. And not everybody is your best friend. And
right.
you have to know that too. Not everybody really is your best friend. And so I think what happens is I would get frustrated, and normally some kind of argument or something would entail. And then I would regret something I would say, or she would regret something she said, and you would try to make up, but it was just kind of still awkward. Now I think that in my thinking and setting boundaries, I think that I would approach things much differently than I did before. I would not let it get to that point where you're doing that yank back to each other. It would be more calm and controlled, and to say what I want to say, and to honestly turn and move on from that. And I remember you told me one time that I could forgive somebody that I was really having a hard time forgiving for something he had done to our family. And you said that I can say that I forgive you, but I don't like you. And that's honestly what I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say, I don't like, and you don't need to approach me anymore on this. Like, this is the end of the line is right here. And then turn and walk away.
He was,
Yeah.
He was a former friend who was not only demanding that you forgive him, but demanding that you do it in a certain way. And that because you weren't being warm and fuzzy, weren't offering warm and fuzzy forgiveness. And I think this is worth saying, that you weren't a good Christian, which is just ridiculous.
Right. I did not appreciate that at all. And when he told me that I needed to be more like God, and I thought, who in the world are you telling me?
I know.
After what he had done. And I thought, and I think it was a manipulative act, and it was trying to play on me, and it was trying to make myself look bad, and he was trying to throw it up in a certain way. And he's just a manipulator from the core. But it was hard. It was hard because it happened so quickly and it happened so fast. We had an over 20-year relationship with this family. And it's hard to let certain things go when people can really disappoint you and they can really turn on you. So this was not an acquaintance. This was a good friend. And that's why I just took it a little bit more to heart. Some people are easier to let go than others. They really are. But he made it quite easy for me to let go of him. But I will say that I will handle it different next time. And if I'm ever approached again, he's probably going to think, why in the HELL did I approach her? Because he's going to find a different LT.
Yeah.
He's going to be like, what just happened? Because I'm already ready. I'm ready. I know exactly what I'm going to do. And I'm going to be calm and methodical about the whole thing. And I really think that I'm not going to be buffaloed again. I'm not going to be caught by surprise when something happens. And that I'm going to attribute that to this work that I've done with myself.
Right.
I attribute it to that. And I'm just not reactionary anymore. I'm not knee jerk. I'm very thoughtful how I do it.
Yeah. You feel in control.
I'm very much in control.
And so I know you, with the interactions that you've had with him before, it has been so it's been flustering for you.
Oh.
And so
to
now
the point that my blood pressure was sky high. Yeah, I just was a wreck.
Right.
An absolute wreck.
I do. And it is so important to know that you can forgive someone, you can cancel their debt and not want to have anything to do with them ever again. So that is okay.
That's right. It is okay. And I am perfectly fine with that now. And if I'm ever in that situation again, that will be the message that is stated. And that goes across the board for anything, not just that situation. I am really okay with letting people go that have really, really done something. And I do not question my belief and how I am as a Christian in doing that. I would question how if I was just really ugly and derogatory and mean-spirited and all of that. But, I can say what I need to say and truly walk away. Right. You don't have to keep engaging and making it right and thinking about, well, if I had said it this way. No, just let some people go. Some people need to be let go. They really do.
Well, and honestly, life is a growth process.
It is.
You're not going to, if you think of it like it's a river, okay? Mm-hmm. And sometimes you're going to have people floating alongside of you, and then they might go off in a little tributary over here and you're still floating down the river. It's okay to not have all the same people your whole life. Sometimes it's not even a thing like they need to be let go. It's just, we don't have as much in common anymore.
That's right.
It just is. I think that we put so much pressure on ourselves in that area. But I think it is just really important and empowering. And as you guys know, I'm all about empowerment, to realize that you can forgive someone and just not have anything to do with them after that. And you don't, wish them harm or anything like that.
That's the thing.
Just done. And that is okay.
And it's really okay.
It is okay.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's not just okay, it's necessary. What about you, Joanne? Where are you with this whole forgiveness thing, and has that changed maybe for
Mhm.
you?
Well, it's changed in that I had a situation. I know LT's situation came about, I think, when she was already in doing the mindset work, and just right before that. Mine happened like years before I discovered this group and started doing any kind of work on myself. And it was with a family member. And that's difficult because, I feel like your family, they can manipulate you a lot easier than outside people because they know
Right.
they know your weaknesses, they know who you are, they know how to get at you. And a situation occurred with an aunt of mine, and she said something really nasty, but on social media, and it was very hurtful to me. And it was completely out of line for her to have said. It wasn't just the way I interpreted it. It was very, very wrong.
Mhm.
Um, and I for a long time I didn't forgive it because it was so bad. It was just so horrible. Um, but then I got to a point where I thought, I have to forgive to move on, because it was like eating at me every day that
Yeah.
it was said. It was just like twisting. And it's not an aunt that I saw all the time. It was one of those people that you see at holidays or you see it, whatever. But I did have, since social media became a thing, I would interact with her online on a regular basis more than I would see her in real life. But after this thing happened, I lashed back on social media because that was the platform that she did it, and everybody saw it and everybody was commenting. And so I felt like I have to say something here,
Yeah.
because I have to let these people know that that's not okay, because they were all cheering her on, like that was a good thing for her to have said. And I was like, and the thing that was said was something about her brother, who's my dad, and he was dead already. And she said something horrible, and I thought, I'm his only child. I have to come to the defense of what she said. Like nobody else is going to. So it was a terrible thing. But in lashing out, I felt awful because that's not my MO. I didn't want to go down to her level, but I
Yeah.
did because I felt like that was the thing to do. But immediately I took it off. Like the next day I deleted my comment and I was like, I'm moving on. But the part I couldn't move on from was the forgiveness, because the rest of the family expected the forgiveness to be the warm, fuzzy thing.
Yeah.
And I was, that did it. That sealed the deal for me. There was no warm, fuzzy ever going to happen. And so then I kind of started beating myself up about that. Well, why can't I forgive her? And I didn't, because I didn't know there were different ways forgiveness could look. And so
Yeah.
I just kept that for years and years and years. And then when I did your mindset marathon and you defined all these different ways that forgiveness could look, and I thought, oh my God, I can forgive her and move on. And I don't have to do the warm, fuzzy thing and still go to family holidays and still follow her on Facebook and still interact like nothing happened, because
Nice.
it did. And I forgive it. I get it. Whatever was said was said. But I was not allowing myself to move on from that. And it was destroying me. And
Yeah.
so once I realized that, you can forgive and move on, and it doesn't have to look like what everybody thinks it does. And because I was confident in myself and knowing that I was authentic about it, I could allow myself to move on and not have anything to do with her anymore and be okay with that. Whereas before I would have been like, oh, you're a bad niece, you're a bad family member,
Right.
what's wrong with you for not going to holidays? It's not that anymore. I'm not wrong. I don't feel like I have to please anybody else, And so
Great.
the
You don't.
forgiveness is now authentic. It's not I'm going to forgive because everybody wants me to, and I think
Right.
that's the right thing to do. I'm doing it because it feels right and I know how to do it now.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
With my mom, and I've been vocal about all of the mess, but it wasn't just my childhood, it was a lot of things in my adulthood So it wasn't just a matter of, parents make mistakes and bad things happen and people don't know how to handle things and they do the best they can. My mom was still this way in my 30s. I mean, so she was still just doing and saying awful things. And so when I finally got to that point where I calmly said to her, we will not have a relationship if you continue to do this, this, and this, then not just my mom, wasn't having it, but my whole family flipped out. You know, how dare you take a stand on this after, 37 years or whatever. So I was facing backlash from all of them. And but I was, if you are the black sheep of your family, that is very common for abusive families. They pick one child as the scapegoat. That's really common. And I was that person. And I just was like, I'm done with this. And so, I don't, again, so I don't wish anything bad to happen to my parents or anything like that. I just am moving on with my life. But people will say to me, but that's your mom.
Yeah.
You only get one mom. I'm like, well, thank God. I couldn't handle two of those people. Are you kidding? So like, we have to stop doing this to each other.
Yeah.
People make decisions, based on the information that they have. And while there are certain, things that happen to us where we can review, revisit whether or not this was the right thing. And, if hell froze over and my mom came and really wanted to have an authentic, honest talk with me and really apologize and wanted to start having a relationship, I certainly would hear her out. But I don't think that's going to happen. And so right now, my decision is no, I'm not having anything to do with that mess right at this point in my life. And that is okay. People are not allowed to make me feel bad about it, just like they're not allowed to tell you, Joanne, that you, because she's part of the family, that you have to behave a certain way. Just like they're not able to tell you, LT, that you're not Christian if you don't immediately accept this guy with open arms after what he did. This is the kind of crap that just puts too much pressure on us. We can let people go and it's fine.
Yep.
We've all done that, and the world did not fall apart. And it doesn't make us bad people. It actually makes us more confident and happier. And so that I want to just encourage the women out there that you can speak up for yourself. It's hard. But that's part of what we do. I can tell you that I felt nauseous the first time that I really spoke up for myself with my mom. And I talked to women in the group who are the same way. They're like, wait, you think I should say this to this person? I'm like, well, that's how you feel, right? So go ahead and vocalize it in a civil way and just hold the line. Hold your boundary. Don't back up and compromise yourself just because somebody else wants you to or is trying to bully you into it.
Right. And I would say if you've got that little something or with somebody that's just eating away at you and that's what you're fixated on and it's just that instant or that person, that probably is something that does need to be addressed because that's what you and all of us are talking about. We had an instance where it just ate away at us until we addressed it. And now we've all moved on from that instead of ruminating over that same situation, that same conversation, circumstance. So somebody may have something that they're just really chewing on and it's affecting their quality of life. That probably needs to be addressed with what you're ruminating.
So that brings up just another final point on that, which is that you may or may not be able to get closure with somebody.
May not.
There will not be any closure as far as I can tell with my family. I don't see that happening. And I've had to accept that and be okay with it. Sometimes you do address something and you're not going to get the response you want. Sometimes the person is passed and you can't address it or so there are times when you need to speak up for yourself and there are other times when you just need to accept that it's not going to happen. But either way, it is okay to let go of that person. And it is
It is.
okay to move on with your life and absolutely necessary for you.
Right. And I think I've expressed before, I had closure with my dad while he was dying in those last few days of dying. And didn't expect it, was going to move on from it. Really, honestly, was going to move on from it. But then it was a gift to me. And I'm very appreciative of that gift. And it's a little tender memory that I'll always carry.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I mean, it's so, you never know what's going to happen with
You
people.
don't know.
But
I
it's
was ready either way. I was
right.
ready.
That's the point.
And
Is
that's
that
the point.
you're good with yourself and
Right.
your choices,
You're
then
right.
then whether or not that happens, your happiness is not dependent on that.
Right.
It's a bonus if it
was,
happens.
and that's what it was. Exactly. That's what it was.
I think that's why it's so completely important that we get in alignment with our authentic selves and live, not just knowing it ourselves, but living out our most authentic life. Because especially in the times the way they are now, with people, passing away quicker than you get to say goodbye to them, I feel like if you are truly living your most authentic self, then you
Yes.
don't have any of that baggage left behind that was unsaid or undealt with.
Yes.
Or, just live authentically, and then life will still happen, but you'll be able to accept it and move on and not let that be a thing that hangs over you the rest of your life.
You're exactly right. And then your friends and your family and people around you aren't wondering, I wonder if I'm going to get a deathbed experience with her. Live
Right.
your life authentically so you don't have to put them in
You don't-
that
yeah.
situation.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Absolutely. I think that's, what is that quote that says the problem is you think you have time.
Right.
We don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know. So you
We
might
don't
as
know.
well live
You do not know.
authentically today.
Mhm.
Be your truest self
Mhm.
today. So, in closing, I just want to say, Gina says, great topic today. It's good to know you are not alone. We have to live our authentic life, just like Joanne is saying, don't feel guilty. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how has taking responsibility for your own happiness changed your life? And how are you, this is, I think, is such a key point, how are you influencing others? Because what happens when you are not being the influencer, you're being influenced. It's one or the other. So if you are surrounding yourself with people who are really negative and who are, stuck and who are maybe even putting you down, I mean, these people are going to influence you unless you are being the influencer. And when you are, it's like I said, it's like a beacon. When you're putting out that authenticity and that positivity and everything, then you're attracting that back. And actually people who aren't like that will kind of just sort of fall away most of the time.
Yeah.
But how do you feel like you're influencing others in your life with this?
Yeah, I definitely feel like I'm on a higher vibe as far as I've always been an extroverted person, and that's just who I am, and I am that way. But I feel like that it just radiates out of me. I feel it radiating out of me now. It's a genuine contentedness, authentic happiness. And I feel like that I just don't have anybody. I honestly do not have anybody in my inner circle that is portraying that negative type vibe, because I just don't have it. I just move. I have really surrounded myself with those type people. And when you are around somebody that has that negative, it's like somebody throwing a cold cup of water in your face, because it's just so like, oh, it's just shocking to be around. And you think, gosh, this is the way I used to be. And I used to talk like this and get so, I can't even believe it that, I let it get that far sometimes. But I think that I definitely am influencing other people, because people are taking notice about weight loss. That's an obvious thing that stands out, and they want to know, what are you doing different? And it's not just eating different. It is thinking different. It's behaving different. It's making better choices in your life. And I'm starting to get those in-depth questions now, instead of just like, what are you doing? It's like, how, what, it's really wanting to get to the crux of it.
You're different as a person. It's not just the weight came off, because we've all been able to lose weight before and gain it back and all that stuff.
Sure, because they've seen me lose it and do that before. But so that I'm so different up here this time, even though I'm down. When I was down before, I wasn't like this.
Yeah.
And it's very obvious. And it's very obvious to me too. Very
Right.
obvious.
And I have to say, LT, I talked to one of your childhood friends recently.
Yeah.
I've networked through LT to get in touch with somebody who lives in Florida where we're trying to
Yep.
move to. And so LT gave me, we've contacted each other now, so I could ask her some questions. And she's one of LT's oldest friends
Dearest
from
friend.
childhood. And she said to me, she's like, what is she doing? Like, she is the happiest. She is just, and that wasn't even, you weren't even there. It was on the phone with her. And she was
Right.
like, she has really changed her life. Like, what is she doing? And when I told her, she's like, well, yeah, that's what she said. It was all about this plant-based eating. And I was like, I'm telling you, that's what this is. And because
Yeah.
I think
That's
she
what
might
it
have
is.
thought
She
you were doing
knows what
some
it is.
hocus pocus.
She was just acknowledging to you that she has noticed a change. But yeah, she's one of my
She
inner
has.
circle closest friends since I was 7 years old. And yeah, and she wants the best for me, and I want
She
the
really
best
does,
for her.
and I could tell. And it was coming from a place of, wow,
does.
she has really changed. And she's noticing, and people are
Yeah.
noticing. And I think it's, and she almost had well, maybe I want to do that because maybe I want to change, like it was that. So I think you portraying
Right.
how you are is influencing the people around you.
Yeah. I think so.
How do you feel like that's playing out for you, Joanne?
I just feel like I am like the people around me, I feel like are being influenced because I'm in control. And when I'm in control and I can portray to them that they are in control, and to put, especially I feel like with teenage daughters, I think that's so important. So that they don't end up people pleasing their whole lives like mama did. I think it's important for them to see now that, and I say this and they probably get sick of it, you're responsible for the energy you bring in a room. And if you are bringing in bad energy, you walk yourself right back out. Walk yourself out and come back in with a different energy because it's not welcome here. Like you need to be responsible and you need to be aware of the energy you're bringing because it not only is toxic to you, it's toxic to the whole room. And but the thing is, you're in control of that.
Yeah.
No, it's not, especially with teenagers, you get pushed back with, well, you didn't do this. So that's why I'm yelling. That's why I'm doing this. No, you're disappointed in your own choice right now and the way you're behaving. So your energy is reflecting that. And you're in control of your choices. If you put off your homework and now you're mad because you're limited for time and it's almost midnight, that was your choice. So I feel like taking back my control of my choices shows other people around me that they're in control of their own choices too. And you can't put that on other people. You can't. And I feel like it's empowering to people to know that you're in control. Because how many years did we spend feeling like we weren't in control? And all the programs we've signed up for, we're putting that on somebody else. Here, do that, and now when we're in this and we're actually doing the mindset work where we're learning how to be in control, I feel like that's just been the biggest game changer, is showing other people you are in control, or you can be, even if you feel like you're out of control now.
Yes.
It's not gone. You have the power to get your control back.
Right. And that is the whole thing. I was telling you a few days ago or whatever, that I had a business coach years back, and she was on a live stream with all of us who were in this group, and she said, okay, what is your offering? What are you guys selling? What do you, tell me what you're marketing to people out there. And I said, empowerment. And she said, no, that's not a thing. I said, yeah, it is. Women do not feel empowered. It's not as easy to market as the keto diet, but it is still important. And once people realize, like, yeah, I can't trust myself. I don't feel empowered to make good choices. I don't feel empowered to speak up for myself. I don't feel empowered to take my time back and to practice self-care. when people start to, women especially, start to acknowledge this, they realize like, yeah, I want some of that. And that's exactly what, we do in our lives, is we're influencing people to be like, yeah, I'm empowered and you can be empowered too.
Right. Right.
And that is where we see the huge life changes, is not just in the weight loss, but in the relationships and the thinking and in the way the women value themselves. And
Right.
that's the part about this that's so exciting.
Yeah. And the good news is it's just like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. You've had it in you and it's been there the whole time. We're just going to help you find it again.
Yeah.
It's not that you've got to go get it. It's already in you.
Yeah.
It's already there.
And sometimes you need that tribe of people who are encouraging you, other women who are saying, yeah, I was scared and then I took this step, and you can see how their lives are changing. That's the really exciting thing, to keep it going. So it's not just, yeah, I lost 20 pounds or 50 pounds or whatever the thing is, but I changed my life. And now I'm happier, I'm healthy, my relationships are better, my career is better, my relationships with my kids are better, like the whole thing. So that's the part that's super exciting. So if you would like to join us, then feel free to message any of us, and we're happy to talk with you about the Plant Power Revolution. Any parting words, ladies?
Yes, I will say happy Valentine's Day and love yourself.
Yes,
self-love.
Right. Self-love. That's what it is all about. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. We love having you here and having the commentary. Continue to comment, even if you're just watching the replay. We will always come back and look at the comments and respond to you. So have an amazing weekend, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Bye.